Callan Ward had grown so used to the quiet that sometimes he wondered if silence had become a roommate, one that never paid rent and judged his terrible coffee. The cabin sat at the edge of the forest like a forgotten bookmark in the middle of a thick green novel, and most days the only excitement was when a squirrel decided to throw a pine cone at his window with suspicious accuracy. His daughters, Mira and Lisa, were visiting for the weekend, which meant the cabin was no longer quiet. It was a storm with giggles, arguments about who finished the raspberry jam, and the constant stomping that somehow made the walls tremble as if preparing for evacuation. He was just settling into his evening ritual, a mug of bitter coffee that tasted like despair and burnt soil, when the door exploded open with a bang designed to sabotage his heartbeat. Mira and Lisa stumbled in first, breathing hard, and behind them stepped a woman who looked like she had walked straight out of a dream or a live-action fantasy convention. Except neither of those should have involved shimmering cloaks, dusted boots, and ears shaped elegantly like crescents. Long ears. That was the first thing Callan noticed. Long, slender, pointed, and twitching as though they were tuning into a radio frequency only she could hear. Before he could form something intelligent like, "Who are you?" or "Why is there glitter falling off your cloak onto my floor?" the woman lifted her chin and announced, "Your offspring suggested your domicile is a temporary refuge of low strategic value. I interpreted this as permission to enter." Callan blinked. Mira grinned. Lisa gave a thumbs up as if to confirm, yes, they had indeed brought home an alien stray. "Dad," Mira said, panting, "she's not from around here." "Which part of around here are we talking about?" Callan asked, trying to calculate whether this was a prank, a hallucination, or one of those government tests that ended with signing too many forms. The woman stepped closer, her eyes reflecting the lamplight in hues that weren't entirely legal under Earth's biological color spectrum. "I am Ari Sill of the Let Harris Reach. My stellar displacement trajectory suffered a catastrophic misalignment." Callan stared at her. "English, please." "I got very lost," she said. That was easier to process, though the presence of long alien ears meant the situation was still firmly in the category of things Callan did not have a manual for. Mira rushed to shut the door, pressing her back to it dramatically. "Dad," something followed her. Something big. There were lights in the sky, like drones, but weird, and humming like a giant electric bee. "It was a recon sweep," Ari Sill added. "They have tracked my vector. They will locate me. But not immediately, I hope. Your forest is surprisingly unfriendly to long-range scanners." "Very refreshing." Callan opened his mouth to respond, then closed it again. He needed a moment. Or several. He looked at his daughters, who were beaming at him like they had just adopted a puppy that could recite math formulas. Then Ari Sill walked toward the kitchen counter, studying his toaster with the suspicion of a seasoned warrior. When the appliance sprang up a piece of toast from its earlier unfinished cycle, she jumped back, raising both hands as if prepared to duel. "It attacked," she declared. "It made toast," Callan corrected. "It hissed. That's steam." She narrowed her eyes. "A deceptive machine." Mira snorted. Lisa wheezed. Callan rubbed his face. He felt the weight of the moment crash onto him like falling cosmic debris. An alien. In his cabin. Standing next to a toaster she now regarded as a mortal enemy. And something else was out there, searching for her. "So," Callan said carefully, "why are they following you?" Ari Sill hesitated. Her ears drooped slightly, something that, judging by her expression, was an involuntary reaction. "I am transporting a rather sensitive artifact. Its importance is significant. If it falls into hostile hands, planetary-scale consequences are likely." Callan turned slowly to his daughters. "And you brought her here?" "In our defense," Lisa said. She looked sad. "And lost," Mira added. "And glowing." Callan pinched the bridge of his nose. "You brought home a glowing fugitive with dangerous enemies because she looked sad?" Lisa nodded enthusiastically. "We're empathetic." Ari Sill tilted her head. "Your offspring display high moral intuition. They also asked whether my ears are detachable. For scientific purposes." Callan groaned. His daughters grinned like they were applying for a prize. A soft, Distant vibration rolled through the air. Something like thunder, but too steady, too mechanical. Arisil's posture snapped straight, ears lifting, eyes sharpening like metal catching moonlight. "They are closer than projected," she murmured. Mira ran to the window, peering out. "Dad, I see it. Something's moving above the tree-line." A faint blue glow skimmed the forest canopy like a scanning beam. The cabin walls hummed softly in response. Callan's heartbeat accelerated. "What do they want from you?" "The artifact," Arisil said. "It is encoded with navigation protocols for sealed wormhole routes. They desire access. If they obtain it, your world may soon receive visitors who do not appreciate diplomacy." Callan had lived through storms, through emergencies, through the chaos of raising children alone. But none of that prepared him for the idea that his daughters had casually invited interstellar conflict into his cabin. Arisil suddenly brightened, not in the glowing sense, but in the "I just remembered something important" sense. "Your domicile has a vehicle, does it not?" "An old pickup truck, yes," Callan said. "It will serve as transport." "It barely serves as a truck. It has wheels. They spin. That is enough." Callan sighed. "Okay, but you'll have to lie down in the back. Someone might notice the ears." Arisil touched them gently. "Are they alarming?" "They're adorable," Mira said. "They're aerodynamic," Lisa added. "They're big," Callan muttered. The humming outside intensified, sweeping the cabin with a low vibration that rattled the dishes. Arisil winced, ears flattening. "We must depart. They will detect my energy signature if we remain." Callan swallowed hard, grabbed his coat, and gestured toward the door. "Fine. Let's go. Before my life becomes any weirder than it already is." Arisil paused at the doorway, glancing back at the toaster with a mix of fear and respect. "Farewell, metallic adversary." Callan tugged her arm. "It's not alive. We will see." The group hurried into the night, the air buzzing with scanning frequencies that prickled against their skin. Above the trees, a sleek alien craft drifted like a predatory moon, bathing the forest in pale light. Callan opened the truck door. "Everyone in now." Arisil climbed into the back, crouching low, pulling her cloak tightly around herself. "I am completely unobservable," she whispered, glowing faintly like a lantern someone had tried, and failed, to turn off. "No," Callan said. "No, you are not." Mira and Lisa scrambled into the passenger seat, squeezing together. Arisil looked up from the truck bed. "Is this appropriate Earth protocol for escape?" "It's called improvisation," Callan said. "I adore improvisation," she replied. The truck rumbled to life with a cough that suggested it resented being awakened at night. Callan pressed the accelerator, the wheels spinning over dirt and roots as the scanning lights swept behind them like a celestial search party. As the forest swallowed the road, Mira whispered, "Dad, what happens now?" Callan kept his eyes on the darkness ahead. "I have no idea." In the back, Arisil raised her head slightly, ears glowing with faint luminescence as she whispered into the rushing wind, "Your world is stranger and more wonderful than I predicted." And somewhere above, the hum of alien pursuit grew sharper, closer, hungry. Callan drove faster. He didn't know what tomorrow would bring. But he was suddenly very certain of one thing. His quiet life was over. The pickup truck rattled through the forest road like an arthritic metal beast, complaining loudly at every bump. The moon hovered low, half hidden behind drifting clouds, and the forest seemed to hold its breath as Callan guided the headlights through twisting paths he knew almost by instinct. Arisil lay in the back beneath a tarp that did nothing to hide the faint glow radiating from her cloak. The truck looked less like a getaway vehicle and more like a suspiciously luminous firefly. Mira peeked through the rear window at her. "Dad, she's definitely glowing more." "I noticed," Callan said, gripping the wheel. "Maybe she's overheating?" "It happens," Lisa said. "Toasters do it all the time." Callan exhaled sharply. "Arisil is not a toaster." "Thank you," Arisil called from the back, sounding deeply relieved. The ridge ahead opened into a clearing where Callan often took the girls star-watching. Tonight, the sky wasn't the peaceful canvas he was used to. Blue streaks sliced across the stars like glowing scars, rapid passes of scanning drones that zipped back and forth, hunting, weaving, tightening the net. Arisil rose just enough for her ears to poke above the pickup bed. "They are triangulating," she murmured. "Their vessels operate on triaxial mesh detection. Very efficient. Very annoying." "We can hide near the old logging station," Callan said. "There's a tunnel beneath the hill. Used to store equipment." "Is it secure?" Arisil asked. "It's old," he replied. "That is not an answer. It's the only one I've got." Arisil accepted that with a grim nod, though her ears flicked nervously. Lisa reached back and whispered through the window, "If they find us, do we get vaporized or kidnapped?" Arisil considered this far too thoughtfully. "It depends on the mood of the hunters. Xeric mercenaries are unpredictable. Sometimes they vaporize first and ask questions later. Sometimes they ask questions while vaporizing." Mira winced. "That's comforting." Callan cleared his throat. "New rule. Let's not talk about vaporizing while I'm driving." The truck finally skidded to a halt near the base of the old hill, tires crunching over gravel. The three climbed out, and Arisil slipped from the back of the truck like a ghost draped in moonlight. Her ears twitched sharply, one turning left, the other right, as if scanning independently. "That's mildly unsettling," Callan muttered. "They are sensitive," Arisil replied. "They're doing more detective work than the local police," Mira whispered. Arisil pressed her palm against the hillside. With a soft hum, a faint ripple of light appeared. "The tunnel is not entirely inert. Something resonates beneath." "That's just the steel beams," Callan said. "No," she responded. "This is different." Lisa bounced excitedly. "Like alien different?" Arisil hesitated, uncertain. "But it feels old. Very old." Callan swallowed. "Well, old or not, we don't have time. Inside. Now." They slipped through the narrow metal door, its hinges groaning dramatically enough to sound offended after decades of neglect. The interior was cold, echoing, filled with the smell of oil and forgotten work gloves. Flashlights cast narrow beams that danced across crates, dusty shelves, and an old forklift that probably hadn't moved since Callan was a teenager. Arisil examined everything with fascinated caution. "Your species invented so many sharp-edged objects." "Why?" "Because we're clumsy," Mira said. "And also creative," Lisa added. "Both concerns me," Arisil replied. They reached the far wall where an old maintenance platform rested beneath crisscrossing pipes. Callan motioned them to crouch behind the crates stacked there. "This spot should block the scanning waves." Arisil knelt and touched the floor. "The metallic structure helps. But only briefly." The humming outside intensified, a low, rhythmic pulse that vibrated through the walls. The lights flickered. Dust rained from the ceiling. "They're close," Callan whispered. Arisil clenched her teeth. "I must destroy the artifact before they find me." "No," Mira said, grabbing her wrist. "You said it's valuable." "It is. But if they obtain it, your world's location becomes a beacon." Lisa frowned. "Can't you, like, scramble it or fry it or something?" Arisil blinked. "Scramble? Fry? These are culinary terms." "Tech cooking," Lisa said proudly. Arisil considered this. "Possibly." Callan leaned forward. "We don't destroy anything unless absolutely necessary." A high-pitched whistle cut through the air. They froze. A thin beam of blue light swept past the windows like a sharp blade slicing darkness. A second beam followed, and then the wall behind them glowed briefly. Arisil stood tall, eyes wide. "They have initiated penetration mapping." "That sounds aggressive," Mira whispered. "It is," Arisil said. Callan reached for the nearest tool he had, a rusty wrench. It wouldn't save them from aliens, but holding it made him feel 3% braver. Arisil tilted her head. Is that your weapon? It's symbolic. For what? Desperation, Callan said. The glow intensified. Something thudded against the ground outside. Heavy, metallic, deliberate. Footsteps. Not human ones. The air temperature dropped several degrees. They sent ground units, Arisil said softly. Xeric scouts. Their armor distorts light, making them almost invisible. They can. A sudden clang interrupted her as Mira accidentally kicked over a toolbox, sending wrenches scattering across the floor like metallic fireworks. Everyone froze. Callan stared at his daughter. Mira whispered, "Oops." Arisil whispered, "We are going to perish because of a box of loud metal implements." Callan held up the rusty wrench. "Not if we're quiet." "How quiet?" Lisa asked. "Quiet, quiet." Mira nodded. "Like library quiet? Quieter. Funeral quiet? Quieter." Arisil frowned. "Why are all your metaphors morbid?" The footsteps approached the entrance. Shadows moved outside, barely visible through cracks in the warped metal walls, shadows with too many angles, too much precision. A robotic click echoed from the door. Arisil reached beneath her cloak and withdrew the artifact, a crystalline shard no bigger than a deck of cards, glowing with intricate strands of shifting light. "If I overload it," she whispered, "the resulting blast will disable their sensors. But it will also reduce your hill to dust particles." "No," Callan hissed. "We're not blowing up my favorite forest." The door twitched. Arisil pressed her back to the crates, breathing shallowly. "I admire your loyalty to your environment." "Thanks," Callan whispered, "but I'd like to survive in it too." The door handle twisted, slowly, quietly, too quietly for anything friendly. Instinct snapped through Callan. He motioned to Arisil. "Is there another exit?" "Yes," she whispered. "Behind the lift." They crept backward, inch by inch, behind the forklift. Arisil pressed her hand to the concrete wall. A hidden seam glimmered, and a faintly glowing line appeared. "There," she whispered. Before she could open it, the door at the front burst inward with a violent clang. The room flooded with blue scanning light. 3 Xeric scouts stepped inside, hulking figures wrapped in shifting, shimmering armor that bent the light around their bodies like liquid mirrors. Their movements were silent, methodical. Callan held his breath. Arisil leaned close and murmured, "When I open this, run." Callan whispered back, "Define run in alien terms." "Faster than you think necessary." She pressed the panel. The hidden door slid open with a soft hiss. The Xeric scouts snapped toward the sound. Arisil shouted, "Run!" Callan grabbed his daughter's hands, and they sprinted into the narrow passage as Arisil slammed the panel shut behind them. A burst of blue light struck the other side, shaking the wall. Lisa gasped. "Are they blasting through?" "Yes," Arisil said, "but the alloy here is unexpectedly durable. Humans build strange things." They ran through the tunnel, their footsteps echoing in frantic rhythm. The passage curved upward, ending at a rusted grate. Callan and Mira pushed together until it popped off with a loud metallic wail, spilling them into the forest above. Fresh air hit them. Stars stretched overhead. Behind them, a distant roar vibrated through the hillside. Arisil didn't stop running. "They will attempt to flank us. Move." Callan followed, his lungs burning, his legs aching, his entire mind screaming that this was far beyond anything he'd signed up for. But his daughters were beside him, and Arisil was ahead, ears glowing like twin beacons guiding them deeper into the trees. Only when they reached a rocky stream did Arisil pause. She bent over, catching her breath. "We have a temporary advantage." Callan leaned against a tree. "Define temporary." "Approximately 3 minutes." Lisa threw her hands up. "Great. Just enough time to panic." Arisil straightened, her expression firming with resolve. "We must go farther. There is an abandoned meteorological station on the ridge. Its equipment may give us leverage. Mira squinted. Leverage, like defense? Or leverage like, push this and hope it doesn't explode? Arisil smiled faintly. A little of both. Callan groaned. I knew it. And together, under the fractured glow of scanning lights cutting through the treetops, they began their climb. Toward the ridge, toward danger, toward something Callan still could not define. But one thing was certain. The night wasn't done with them yet. Callan had never climbed the ridge at night, and certainly not with an alien woman sprinting ahead of him like a glowing woodland spirit chased by interstellar debt collectors. The path twisted upward in steep zigzags, the trees whispering with each gust of wind as if gossiping about their poor life decisions. Mira and Lisa kept pace surprisingly well, although they narrated every step with dramatic commentary. My legs are filing a formal complaint, Mira said, stumbling over a root. My lungs have already resigned, Lisa added. Callan wheezed. Your lungs can resign after we survive. Arisil, several steps ahead, paused and turned back, her long ears gently illuminated by bioluminescent veins. We must conserve energy. The station is close, but the mercenaries will not stop. They lack hobbies. That explains their personalities, Lisa muttered. Arisil considered this. Yes. Their emotional range is limited. Mostly aggression. And mild irritation. They continued upward. As they neared the ridge's peak, the abandoned meteorological station rose from the ground like the skeleton of a forgotten machine. Rusted metal ribs jutted upward, and a broken radome lay cracked in the brush like a giant eggshell. A weather tower leaned at an angle suggesting it had given up on life decades ago. Callan slowed, catching his breath. I've been here before, but in daylight. It didn't look this creepy then. It looks haunted, Mira whispered. It looks like the place haunted places avoid, Lisa corrected. Arisil approached the station entrance and traced her fingers along the frame. Old Earth technology, she murmured. Obsolete, but resilient. Humans build with enthusiasm. That's not the word I'd use, Callan muttered. She knelt beside a rusted panel and pressed her palm against it. The metal flickered faintly, reacting to her touch. Mira gasped softly. Arisil's ears lifted. This building contains dormant power channels. I believe I can activate them using a minimal energy injection. Callan raised a brow. Minimal energy. Not explosion energy. Right. Arisil blinked innocently. It is unlikely to explode. How unlikely? Considerably. That is not a number. Correct. Before Callan could argue, Arisil released a soft pulse of light from her palm. A faint shiver ran through the building. Lights sputtered along the old console panels inside like startled fireflies waking from hibernation. A low hum filled the station, wobbling uncertainly but alive. Mira stepped inside, staring around with wide eyes. Whoa! It's like retro-futuristic in here. Lisa flicked a switch. A dusty screen flickered to life and displayed a weather warning from 1987. I think we've time-traveled. No, Callan said. It's just the government never updates anything. Arisil moved toward the main console, placing the crystalline artifact on its surface. The object pulsed, its shifting patterns reflecting along her fingertips. This station's atmospheric sensors may allow me to mask my signature. Callan frowned. How does that work? Arisil tapped the console. It emits noise. Noise. Yes. Radio wave noise, thermal noise, electromagnetic noise, emotional noise. Your species seems to specialize in that last one. Hey, Callan said, offended. Mira elbowed him. She's not wrong. Outside, the sky flashed with blue arcs. The Xeric scouts were closing in, slicing through tree branches like hot knives through optimistic butter. The ridge trembled with each sonic ripple. Arisil adjusted the controls. I require a higher vantage point. The tower above may amplify the signal. Callan stared at the tower. That tower? The one leaning like it's about to retire permanently. Yes, Arisil said brightly, as if this were wonderful news. Lisa giggled. She's really embracing Earth danger culture. Before Callan could protest, Arisil darted up the metal ladder, her cloak fluttering behind her. Callan groaned and followed, because someone had to keep her from falling off the tower and turning into alien pancakes. Mira and Lisa stayed below, scanning the tree line nervously. Halfway up, Callan muttered, "Stars, I'm too old for this." Arisil looked down. "You are not old. I'm 46. In Letharian years, that is equivalent to, oh, that is old. Thanks." At the top, the platform creaked beneath their weight in a way that suggested it deeply regretted their choices. Arisil crouched, placing the artifact on the central beam. She closed her eyes, and threads of light extended from her fingertips, weaving around the beam like glowing vines. The crystal brightened, projecting an intricate lattice of shifting holographic equations into the air. Callan stared, mesmerized. "What is that?" "A distortion matrix," Arisil whispered. "If I calibrate it properly, it will reroute the scanners. They will think I am everywhere." Callan blinked. "That sounds useful. And mildly confusing. They dislike confusion. So, they're like toddlers with plasma weapons." "Yes." "Down below," Mira shouted. Dad?" "Arisil?" "They found the ridge." Callan leaned over the railing. Shadows emerged from the trees, tall, armored silhouettes with shimmering outlines. The Xeric scouts moved with unnatural grace, bending light around themselves, flickering between visibility and invisibility like glitching reflections. Lisa yelled, "They're climbing!" Arisil stiffened. "I need 10 more seconds. No interruptions." 10 seconds. "I can do 10 seconds, Callan said, panicking. He swung wildly with his rusty wrench at the first scout climbing the tower. The wrench struck the alien's hand with a loud metallic ping. The scout slipped backward, hissing. Arisil didn't look up. "You struck a Xeric soldier with a tool designed for plumbing. That is deeply disrespectful." "I'll apologize later," Callan grunted, swinging again. 2 more scouts began scaling the tower. Mira and Lisa threw rocks at them, missing spectacularly. One rock hit Callan's boot. "Stop aiming for me," he shouted. "We're trying," Lisa yelled back. Arisil's eyes snapped open, light blazing from them. "Done." The artifact surged. A shock wave of shimmering distortion rippled outward, sweeping over the ridge like a wave of bending glass. The scouts froze, flickering erratically. Their armor shimmered, confused by the conflicting signals. Arisil grabbed the artifact and shouted, "Jump!" Callan stared at her. "Jump! Jump where?" She shoved him. He screamed the whole way down. They landed in a dense pile of shrubs at the base of the tower, leaves exploding around them like green confetti. Mira and Lisa rushed over. Lisa grinned. "That was awesome." Callan groaned. "I landed on a rock." Arisil stood, brushing leaves from her cloak. "The distortion will last only moments. We must move." The scouts staggered, glitching in and out of visual coherence like malfunctioning holograms. Their scanners fired wildly in all directions. Mira pointed toward the far slope. "That way." They sprinted again, Callan limping, Arisil glowing, Mira shouting directions, Lisa cheering for reasons no one understood. The mercenaries' confusion gave them just enough time to reach the forest's shadow. Callan glanced back. The ridge was awash in flickering light, the scouts stumbling like drunken strobe lights. He sucked in a shaky breath. Okay. That bought us some time." Arisil nodded, though her ears drooped from exhaustion. "Only minutes. They will recalibrate soon." Mira placed a hand on her shoulder. "Are you okay?" Arisil hesitated. "I am tired." Lisa frowned. "Like normal tired or alien tired?" "Alien tired. It is worse. Everything feels heavier." Callan moved closer. "Then we find somewhere safe." Arisil met his eyes, her voice softening. "There is only one place left. But reaching it will be dangerous." Callan managed a tired smirk. "Considering tonight? Danger is the only predictable thing we have." Arisil's ears lifted slightly, a faint smile for her species. She nodded and began walking deeper into the forest. Callan followed, daughters at his side, scouts behind them, the night stretching ahead like the next chapter in a story none of them were prepared for. And somewhere in the dark, a new sound emerged, a low hum, mechanical but different. Something was coming. Something not Zarek. But whether friend or threat, none of them knew. Elias woke before dawn, startled by a faint humming that didn't belong to any appliance he owned. For a moment he lay motionless in bed, blinking into the darkness, wondering if old age had finally gifted him tinnitus. But then the hum wavered, dipped, and rose again, far too rhythmic for an ear problem. He groaned, swung his legs over the edge of the mattress, and shuffled out to the hall. Human fathers with teenagers grew accustomed to all kinds of strange morning noises. Hair dryers, music, interdimensional portals apparently. But his daughters usually waited until after breakfast before violating the laws of physics. He walked toward the living room and froze. There, glowing faintly in the dim blue light, stood a spherical device the size of a washing machine, pulsing like a metallic jellyfish. It hovered 20 centimeters off the ground. Floating things in his house were usually the cats, and even they were not this organized about it. He rubbed his eyes. The sphere didn't vanish. "Oh, great," he muttered. "Either I'm hallucinating, or someone ordered alien tech off the discount section again." His voice carried into the kitchen. A pair of soft footsteps hurried toward him, followed by another pair, louder and full of teenage impatience. "Dad, don't freak out," Mia said, sliding in front of him as though she could shield him from the bizarre device, despite being barely tall enough to reach the ceiling fan if she jumped. "Yeah, this is not like the time we accidentally melted the toaster trying to make rainbow plasma bread," Kara added. "This one is totally safe." "Probably-ish." Elias stared at them both. "Define-ish." Before either daughter could invent a lie, the sphere shuddered and split open with a hiss of violet steam. A hatch rolled aside, revealing a slender silhouette within. Elias felt his stomach plunge into some subterranean layer of anxiety where middle-aged men stored all their unspoken worries about mortgages, car repairs, and mysterious interdimensional guests. A woman stepped out. She was tall, graceful, and human in every way except for her ears, which were long, elegant, and tapered like the elves from the fantasy novels Elias used to read when he still had time to be a human being instead of a full-time father and part-time amateur therapist to 2 chaotic children. The woman steadied herself, brushing off a shimmering dust that clung to her travel suit. Then she lifted her gaze toward Elias, and he felt an absurd urge to stand straighter, like a teenager meeting his crush's parents. "Hello," she said with a voice so soft it felt like it bypassed his ears entirely. "I apologize for the abrupt arrival. Your daughters assured me this was a safe place." Elias turned to glare at his daughters. Both smiled innocently, the kind of smile children used when they knew they had detonated a metaphorical bomb but were hoping their cuteness could distract from the crater. "What did you two do?" he asked. Mia raised her hand like a student answering a question in class. "We may have activated a beacon." "That we shouldn't have activated," Kara added. "From a crashed probe we totally weren't supposed to touch," Mia concluded. Elias closed his eyes. Counting to 10 did nothing. Counting to 500 helped only slightly. When he opened them again, the alien woman still stood there, looking politely awkward, as though arriving in someone's living room through a glowing space sphere was a mild social inconvenience. "Okay," he sighed. "Let's start with names. I'm Elias. These 2 trouble generators are Mia and Kara. And you are?" "Lyra," she answered with a small bow. "Envoy of the Solari Union. Or formerly thereof." "Formerly," Mia repeated. "What changed?" "Well," Lyra said gently, "your daughters may have just committed an act of interstellar discovery." Kara gasped. "So we're scientists now?" "No," Elias corrected. "You're grounded." Lyra blinked. "Grounded? Is this a ritual punishment?" It's what parents say when children activate alien beacons and summon strangers into the living room at 4 in the morning. I see, Lyra said, nodding with deep seriousness. Your culture is remarkably structured. Elias rubbed his forehead. Please tell me we're not in danger. Lyra hesitated. He immediately disliked the hesitation. There is a possibility, she began carefully, that the beacon transmitted more than just a location signal. It may have also updated the Union about my status. Kara leaned forward. Which is? Lyra folded her hands, ears drooping in embarrassment. I went missing 3 cycles ago. I was supposed to return home with a critical report, but after a series of misunderstandings involving a wormhole, a malfunctioning navigation drone, and a rather judgmental cosmic squid, I ended up stranded far from my sector. If the Union believes I've been taken or compromised, they might arrive soon. Elias exhaled a deep, fatherly sigh reserved only for moments when reality bent too sharply. Let me get this straight. Alien authorities are now coming to my house. To my actual house. Because my children found a probe and pushed a button. In our defense, Mia said, it was a really shiny button. Extremely shiny, Kara agreed. Elias turned back to Lyra. And what do they want with Earth? They will likely conduct a retrieval operation, Lyra replied, which involves scanning the planet, evaluating threat levels, and possibly initiating a peaceful contact protocol. In the best case, it will be an organized diplomatic exchange. In the worst, she hesitated again. They may assume Earth is responsible for capturing me. Mia blinked. Are we talking war? No, Lyra said quickly. More like awkward negotiations and heavy surveillance. Oh good, Elias muttered. Interstellar awkwardness. My favorite. The sphere behind Lyra snapped shut with a metallic clunk. Its lights flickered, dimmed, then powered down completely. Lyra glanced at it, frowning. That is not ideal. I believe it has entered stasis. You mean it's out of battery? Kara asked. Essentially, yes. Without it, I cannot contact the Union myself. So we wait, Elias said, for alien officers to knock on my door. Not necessarily knock, Lyra said. They tend to prefer descending in formation with bright lights. Perfect, Elias whispered. Just what the neighbors need. He walked to the kitchen table and sat heavily in a chair. His life had been simple. Quiet. Predictable. Breakfast at 7. Work at 8. Dinners filled with mild chaos. Now he had an alien woman with elegant ears and diplomatic credentials standing barefoot on his carpet. A silence hung over the room until Mia suddenly piped up, Dad, you're handling this really well. No, he said. I'm just too tired to panic properly. Lyra moved closer, her expression gentle. I am sorry for the disruption. I had no intention of placing your family at risk. If you wish, I can leave and find shelter elsewhere. No, Elias said before thinking. No, you're already here. And apparently so are your space colleagues soon. We'll figure this out together. Lyra's ears lifted slightly, the Solari equivalent of a relieved smile. Thank you. That is unexpectedly kind. Kara nudged Mia. Dad's adopting an alien. Called it. I am not adopting anyone, Elias insisted. But he already suspected that this strange, shimmering morning would change everything. His home, his daughters, his quiet routines, and perhaps even the future of humanity itself. Outside, the first rays of dawn touched the sky, and somewhere far above Earth's atmosphere, something unseen shifted in response. A signal had been received. A location locked. And a fleet, massive and brilliant, began to turn toward the little blue world where one missing envoy had finally resurfaced. And inside a modest living room, Elias braced himself, fully aware that the universe had just scheduled a meeting at his house, and there was absolutely no chance to cancel it.